Hey folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name's Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It is 2:50 Central Texas time, and we are on the eve of TEXITCON. I'm getting prepared for TEXITCON. I wonder if you are. I hope to see you there tonight at 6 p.m. at Bear Arms Brewing in Waco, Texas. You get to meet DJ Rigby Red himself, which is Brandon from Rags to Riches. He'll be out there with D. Lee giving hugs indiscriminately. But it is so good to have you here today. I wanted to talk to you today about, will Texas really be independent again? And as I prepare for really a weekend where we're going to have people from across the Texas nationalist movement, speakers from all across the world coming into Waco, Texas to talk about the independence of Texas. We've got people that are, I mean, there's a guy running for president, there are senators, there are people from all amazing perspectives of independence. Um, Dr. Turley's going to be there. I mean, we got the whole gang, and I'm really excited about it because you know what is great about meeting in person, and I learned this in Austin here last Friday. There's nothing that compares to being in person together. That's it. The special things when you look somebody in the eye. And so I'm excited about that. We're going to be having a meetup, a Texan token meetup, right at 6 p.m. And that's going to overlap with the event for the conference. And so this is kind of the welcome happy hour, if you will. And that's going to be fun. That's tonight at 6 p.m. And so ZZ Tesco and myself will be heading to Waco here shortly. And I wanted to take some time to talk about and prep for and share with you what's going to be happening here this weekend. We're going to be doing some streaming from there. We're going to be doing a number of things. Once we get on site, we'll be able to take a look at what's happening. But I'm so glad that you're here. A number of people are here in the chat. Taryn's here. What's up, Taryn? Good day, all. Rich Liberation, let's go. Hikes Rockstars back. Aye. And Rich Liberation with the Texas and the Love and ID. Identity Blocks is back, man. Dude, you are batting 1,000 on this stream, and I appreciate that. Over on Discourse Syndicate right now, we've got Papa B and DJ Cryptomatic. So that's an option for your viewing pleasure as well. But a stream wouldn't be a stream without this fellow. Hello, all from Central Waco. David Lee is in town. And I think that's reason enough for you to get out to Bear Arms Brewing tonight at 6 p.m. because David Lee is indiscriminately hugging people. If you do not watch your back, you might get a hug from that guy. But he traveled all the way from southwestern Indiana, not only to my dad's funeral, but also to TEXITCON. And he is there in the flesh. And we're just excited. We're excited about, I'm excited about divine appointments. Do you know what a divine appointment is? A divine appointment is something, a lot of times we go to things with certain expectations, right? We're like, oh, yeah, we're going to go and meet some people, or we're going to go and shill Texan, or we're going to go and do this. And what you don't realize is that everywhere you go, there's an assignment for you. And do you see the world that way? Do you think, you know what? I'm going to be on the lookout. I'm going to be on the lookout for a special assignment. And that may be very simple. It may be somebody that's struggling and that you can lend an ear. Or if you're David Lee, you give them a hug. But there are also people that you're supposed to meet at a certain time. And so one of the things I'm preparing for is I'm giving one of the opening talks at TEXITCON. And I'm really excited about it because the name of it is A Shot of Texit Hopium. And I just shout out to Nate Smith, who said, hey, would you do this? Would you get us fired up for Texas independence and to kick off the conference like this? And I'm like, yes, let's do it. So I've been preparing my remarks because ultimately, I realize what is really going on here? What's at stake here? And a lot of people will ask the question, is Texas really going to be independent again? What does that mean? And I think it brings up in a lot of people's minds fear. But when you start looking at history and you start looking across the world, this nature of self-determination is nothing new. But it is rooted in the very core of human sovereignty. And so one of the things that's interesting is the Declaration of Independence. And you think about this time, the pilgrims, you've heard this story, right? Pilgrims come across for religious liberty, right? They want to have some freedom. And what's interesting about the colonies And of course, we know the Boston Tea Party, and we know that when somebody's bullying you over the price of tea and all sorts of usurpations, and you make a list of these things, you get to a certain point where you're just like, I got to throw off these bonds, these shackles. This thing that's across the sea is bearing too heavily down on us, and we are capable of leading ourselves. Hey, does that sound familiar to you? Because here's the thing that most people don't relate to, because there's a narrative that's upside down that you've been told all of your life. You've been told that over billions and billions of years that we just tripped and fell into this situation that we're in. And think about how this flies in the face of the very foundation of America and Texas. So think about these. These are two competing views. The first one is that over billions and billions of years, atoms and cells bumped into each other, and pow, you're David Lee. Well, that's not the view that the founders had of America or Texas. One of the things that they did is they could have been kings. They could have been kings. Think about it, right? You fight this war, you get to write the rules, man. And what do people do? Right? I'm the man. So, as a man centered world that we live in, and this is the challenge that we all have, because in this upside down world, we're all fighting for power. What do we see happening in this world? The fight over resources, the fight over scarcity, the fight in its power that is exchanged, right? People dominating others with power. And what's interesting is the founders recognized something that was inherent in you, and that is your authority. And there's a difference between power and authority. And if you listen to Fridays with Steve Staggs, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Power is something that is yielded and wielded. Authority is something that you're given that has that what comes with it is this power to bless and protect. And there's a purpose in all of this. So the founding fathers, those that started America and Texas, really thought deeply about this idea of who are we? And what is it that makes us who we are? Is it billions and billions of years and then Cro-Magnon man and then, Neanderthals and then hunter-gatherers and then bam, civilization, and now here you are and Chat GPT? Or is there something else going on that we're unaware of, that the story is incomplete? Well, I would say so. What makes you unique in this world is your creative ability. That's the thing that separates us. And in that fundamental creative ability, it says we are created in the image of the creator. And so the founders understood something. They said, you know what? Who you are and what you possess as rights are self-evident. Isn't that interesting? They're self-evident. They're obvious. Like, this is obvious to all of us. And to think about that, if you were to ask leadership right now across America, across Texas, and you said, are people sovereign? Meaning, do they have rights aside from the state? What would they say? Would they say that there are certain inalienable rights that you have that are self-evident, that are obvious? So much of what we show is that we see our leaders put their hand on the Bible and swear allegiance to the Constitution. And what's interesting about this is the language we use, whether it be the Constitution or many other documents, is that we find that we become subject to them. And because of the system, right, a lot of the arguments for Texas independence come back to legal arguments. And I think it's very important to understand what happens when it comes to separating and breaking the bonds of tyranny and actually going your own way, self-determination. You reject that authority. You're not subject to it, because government is created by sovereign individuals. They're made by people. And if you think about it, back at the original founding, we find these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. And what's interesting about this is that the government is created by the consent of the governed. Okay, so we're governed by it. It's our consent. We agree. It's interesting how money and crypto fits into all this, because we have a thing called fiat currency. And fiat means by decree. Well, what is a decree if not an agreement? We say it has value and we agree to it. That is our consent. And so what's the problem that has happened is that the state sees themselves as being sovereign, right? We think about the sovereign United States, a sovereign government, right? We talk about democracy, we talk about sovereignty and all these things. But what we don't realize is that it derives its power from us. And so when you think about breaking these bonds, shedding these things, why would you do it? You shouldn't do it lightly. Why would you do it? And why would Texas really be independent again? Well, fundamentally, it's because, in my opinion, it has been divinely decreed that there is a time of cycles in this world. And you can see this over and over in literature, right? People become very, very self centered and they accumulate power and they lord it over people. And then the people get upset and they get a heavier hand. Does that sound familiar? CBDCs, right? Lockdowns, all of these things, a heavier hand, because as I have power, I wield it over you. And it's the only thing I have. And I don't want I want the people to actually be distracted, to be fearful and off center. But what's interesting is when people come together in unity of agreement and they're committed to something that's very fundamental, and that is that the human spirit that is based in the fundamental principles of your personal sovereignty and the rights that are given to you by God, and that we collectively come and associate together to determine how we shall be governed. That's why in every constitution, Texas and America, it says all political power resides in the people, not partial political power, all political power. Now, the beauty of this place is you can't just decide to dissolve it. It has to be an agreement, a consent of the governed, and there are mechanisms by which you do that. But if we look back in history, we look at America's founding. If you don't base it on the very fundamental principle that you have something that's valuable inherently, who you are is valuable. Who you are has rights that are self evident, that are not given to you by the state, but are given to you by the ultimate creator of the universe. And what's interesting is this flies in the face of modern day culture, a secular culture, and what they want to restrict, right? Even to the point where we're redefining everything. Because ultimately, what a power hungry system wants is you to sit down and to shut up. And so, why do I think that Texas will be independent again? Because it's inevitable in the cycles of life. If you think about this, empires fall and people get together and they create a more perfect union. You know, what is it going to take? I don't know. Is it going to be the border issue? What's it going to be for you? But one of the things that's happening this weekend is that Texans are coming together and some people that aren't from Texas are coming together to support our desire and determination to go it alone. And I think it's really important. I check my own language many, many times because we're not asking for permission, right? And I think a lot of times we're saying, hey, will you please let us vote? No, 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 no. We have to decide fundamentally in our own hearts, is this true? Are you sovereign over the state? And that's how it's written. And I think what's beautiful about it is that's what makes freedom possible, is you have the freedom to choose. And so setting up systems and governments and new places to live is one in which is matched to the very nature of the human heart, because we are built for freedom, free will, and free choice. And what are we seeing now, right? We're even controlling what you think. That's what's happening in this world, right? Censorship. But it sits at a really unique crossroads of time where the money is changing. And what does it take to have change? Well, the money. The money is a big part of it. The resourcing. Daniel Miller's been doing this since 1996. How crazy is that? He has committed his life's work as a historian, as an orator, as a leader to Texas independence. In 2005, the Texas Nationalist Movement became an actually official nonprofit organization. And it's been interesting because when he first began, there were a bunch of old crusty secessionist people, and they're like, you know what? It was polling in the single digits. But as time progressed and as things got more out of hand and the federal government became more encroaching, what we have found most recently in the most recent poll is that 66% of likely voters in Texas would support Texas independence. And so people are going to be getting together this weekend at TEXITCON. And these are the activists. These are the people that are out there. These are the people that have a vision for a life that is better for their kids and their grandkids. And I would just say this to you. I believe that everyone or anyone that we talk to, a regular person in this world, and you said to them, should you be free to ask to choose what's best for your family, where you educate or how you educate your children? Would you want to have safety for your kids? Would you want to have opportunity and prosperity for your family and your community? Would you want the systems that are governing you, right, that you consent to, actually for you and for the common good? Because if you think about the creation of new things and what's so great about the new Texas Republic 2.0, if you will, is the fact that we get to reimagine what does it look like to ensure and to enshrine these things that we believe and know are self-evident. And one of the biggest things that I think most people would agree on is the fact that the government itself needs to be limited. There are important things it does. And these things are enumerated in our Constitution, like security, like the border. Like there's some basic things, right? Keep you from getting shot and killed. Well, that's kind of what we would like to get together and say, hey, maybe we should, have a common defense. Maybe we should protect ourselves. And right now, the federal government is literally, for political reasons mostly, wanting to change the very demographics of our nation. It's a political move. Is that for the good of the people, or is that for the accumulation of power? And so I talk about the creator and inalienable rights for a reason, because what's interesting is you have a choice when you realize that you were created and given, rights that are not, given to you by the state. You recognize that you have a certain authority over this thing. And it hopefully is something that gives you encouragement that you actually can make a difference. But if in fact the founders saw and believed that there was a hand of providence, that there was a God who cared, then what is his nature and character? And I think that's an interesting concept that I think is important to understand in all this because we get it mixed up. We think this is about voting for Texas independence. No, 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 no. This is about your own heart understanding its sovereignty. Because as we come together, we look at it and we say, well, what does it mean to build a more perfect union? What does it mean to be independent? What does it mean to go it alone? What does it mean? Well, it's about the common good. It is about blessing and protecting because the thing should make your life better, not worse. How's it going? That's the big question. How's it going? What's interesting is when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, right? God said, get rid of those fig leaves, right? They had sewn together things to cover their private parts, right? Remember they were ashamed and naked? And he killed an animal and covered them. And they left the garden. They were booted out. And in that was a decree that you would rule and reign, you would have dominion over, and you would subdue the earth. And what's interesting in that picture of leaving the garden and being given the earth is this idea that we have authority over it. But that authority isn't separate from the one who's the author. And when you think about what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to create this more perfect union? Is it so I have more power and that I can lord it over you? Or is there something greater happening? Because with that decree to have dominion, to subdue, and to rule and reign in my nature and character, says the author, you're also to be fruitful and to multiply. A lot of times we think that's about having kids, and it certainly is, but it's more than that. The idea of being fruitful. What is a healthy plant or tree? It is one that bears much fruit. And what is fruit a picture of but the seed, right? The seed is that which is the picture of abundance. When a seed goes into the ground, it produces a yield. And so when we look at this thing, and it's interesting. The disciples asked Jesus, they said, hey, how should we pray, man? And what did Jesus say? He said, our Father who art in heaven, holy is your name. So he recognized the author and perfecter, the person who created it all, the creator. And this is where it gets really interesting because we often gloss over it. Your kingdom come. Packed in this. He's like, hey, how do we do it? Our Father in art in heaven, holy is your name. Your kingdom come. What is his kingdom? What's interesting about this is he gave us the ability to subdue, to rule and reign, to have dominion in his nature and character. Well, what does that look like? Well, that's blessing and protecting. How's it going? How's the government doing it, blessing and protecting you? Do you feel blessed and protected by the SEC? I don't know. Do you? That's a really, really good question. So here is what I would like to do. And hopefully, my audio just got a lot better. Be fruitful and multiply. So what's amazing to me is that the directive that we have, why Texas independence? Why would we even get together and talk about this? Are you a bunch of secessionists, right? No, we're a group of people just like any group of people who said, "You know what? This is not representing us and our values and who we are. We think that it's gotten out of control. This bureaucratic state's gotten too big. The rules and, legislating from the bench, the systems that were created initially to bless and protect us have now enslaved us. And so there comes a time in human events when you need to cast these things off. And people are like, well, there's a lot of people who do not like conflict. I know you've met them. Like literally, oh no, I'm going to avoid conflict at every possible turn. Well, you can't be independent without conflict. And I don't mean armed conflict. I mean, it's disruptive. But what's interesting is it requires leadership. And the question is, who's going to step up and lead? Who's going to step up and say, no, we are the sovereigns. We are not your subjects. Because in effect, the federal government has become like a kingdom or monarchy. And what are we saying? We're saying exactly what they said back then. No taxation without representation. Well, what is the essence of this? Hey, we can handle our own issues, our own situation, and it's going to be much, much more effective if we do that locally. You probably know Texas was independent in 1836 for 9 years. And what's amazing about that is it was a nation before. And what's amazing about the Texas culture and heritage is that every kid that comes through the public schools and through the private schools of Texas have to learn Texas history. I had to learn it with my kids. I'm from Michigan. I came down here and married a Texas girl, and I had to teach my kids Texas history. And when you understand the richness of Texas history and you understand the people, the friendly demeanor, the independent spirit, there's a reason that Texas is known across the world. And it's those things. This isn't just random, like, hey, let's just do something. Let's change this for a willy-nilly reason. No. So why do I think that Texas will be independent again? Because this is the nature of human events. And if you recognize that there's a creator, these cycles continue to repeat themselves. We are in a crisis era. It's very much like the United States in 1860, right? This is pre-Civil War days. There was a disagreement about things. Now it's different issues. But here's the thing. At some point in time, it's inevitable. And the question is, are we going to be ready for it when it comes? Are we going to contribute to it? And are we going to do something that creates really not only the envy of the United States, but of the world? Because the world requires leadership. And in my opinion, it requires leadership that recognizes the fundamental fact that the state is not sovereign over you. You are not its subjects. That's why the American ideal is so unique. Because in its purest form, it recognizes your individual sovereignty. And this is our right. All political power resides in the people. And there comes a time when you have to do this, and you don't do it lightly. But here's the problem. Most people that do not like conflict are much more likely to suffer than change. And they'll just go along with it. Well, I don't want to rock the boat. Well, the question is, if we don't step up and we don't speak up and we don't do something, nothing will happen. And so the question I have for you and will have for those who attend Texicon is, what is the calling? What is the calling that you have? What's your purpose? Why are you here? What's the reason for you to be involved? And I'll bet you every person you ask would say something very fundamental to the protection of those that they love. They're looking at the trajectory of things and saying, this is upside down and backwards, and we need to turn it right side up. And what are the fundamental things of that? Well, it's the very, very core understanding that we are not subjects, we are sovereigns. And we create government so that it can be good for people, that it can create a scenario in which you're blessed and protected. It is something that actually is for you, not against you. But this happens all the time. This isn't new. This isn't unique to Texas. This isn't unique to America. This is the common. I mean, all you have to do is go through Judges, read the book of Judges. All you have to do. Oh, yeah. So what happened? The nation of Israel. What did they do? Right? They got all fat and happy and confident in themselves, and then they had tragedy, and they came back to the Lord, and the Lord then accepted them back, and they blessed them, and that cycle continued. This is the nature of the human experience. And these things, just like the fall of Rome or the Japanese empire, or whatever it may be, all empires come to an end. And generally, they spend themselves out of existence. So the big question is this: where are good people going to go? And I don't mean just what dirt are you going to live on. I mean, what do you want to see in the future? Because you've been convinced that you're a subject. We use the language that we're subjects of this system that is sovereign over us. And once you come to that understanding that you are sovereign, and you go, hold on, I have a responsibility to create a future for my family that's better. And you see that in crypto. That's why you're in crypto. You're like, yeah, I'm in crypto for a reason. Because it has a promise that things might be better tomorrow than they are today. Now combine those two things. And that's what we've done with the Texan token. And so as sponsors, we're the top sponsor of the TEXITCON. We're going to be explaining to anyone who comes and anyone who wants to listen the details of what in the purpose of the Texan token. The Texan token was created so that we could help support the independent-minded people of the world, people that recognize personal sovereignty and freedom, and specifically 500,000 members of the Texas Nationalist Movement, people who believe in self-determination, that they would have something that could have an experience like OG Hexicans experienced. But the utility is one of the greatest utilities ever, because this is the first contract on the blockchain that is tied to a political outcome. And you're like, well, I don't like politics. Well, that's fine. It's not for you then. But what's incredible about this idea is when I first got into this community, this Richard Hart ecosystem, I put $600 into Hex on a whim. And it turned into $15,000 in a very short amount of time. And what happened was crypto proved itself to me. Every time I came home to the dinner table, I told my wife, hey, you know that $600, it's now 3,600 or it's now 7,500. And she's like, that's not real money. Every single time. My daughter turned 16 and we bought her a car. It became real money. Well, what does it look like when regular people in Texas and across the world who believe in freedom and sovereignty have an abundance or have more? They probably take care of themselves and their families. They probably contribute to their communities, and they probably create scenarios in which they bless and protect people. They don't hoard and lord over people. And that's my hope in the human experience, is that when you understand how you fit into this world and you realize that it's short and that we have been given a divine assignment, is that your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. There is a picture of the way it's supposed to be, and it ain't this. So what would we do? Understand the nature and character of the one who created it and repeat. Bless and protect. Well, that's what we are doing. That's what I do to my family. That's what you likely do with your family. How do I bless and protect my family? You provide. You have rules. You have barriers. You have a system. There's a way in which your family runs. Some of it's healthy, some of it's not. But the same thing is true here is that we create these things, and the future that we create is created by our language, and we literally speak it into existence. But if there are not people who can show us a future of what it looked like not to be under the hand of heavy authoritarian government, we will just suffer rather than change. And so I'm super stoked to see Hexicans, Texicans, Pulsicans, Pulsexicans tonight at 6 o'clock in Waco at Bear Arms Brewing. And then I'm really excited about the TEXITCON, meeting people across the world and looking for the divine appointments that will be made there. It is an incredible opportunity that we have to live at this time in human history. Everything is changing. And we get to have a seat at the table of creating the future that is better for our life, our liberty, our posterity. I'm taking that seriously, and I hope that you would too. But I also want to encourage you to look at the Texan token. The Texan token represents the first endowment contract on the blockchain. It is a means by which we encourage the people of the TNM, independent people in Texas. You don't have to live in Texas because Texas is a state of mind. It's more than a state. But that's the cool thing about it. And so as we look to onboard people into crypto, right? In crypto ease, it's like, yeah, man, let's get no coiners in. Yeah. Those are some tactics that we could definitely use. But there has to be a why behind it that is significant. Why would you? Is it just to get rich? Well, maybe that happens in the process. But the community aspect of this, the relationship aspect of this, and then ultimately the political aspect of this is unique. And I believe fundamentally, as we go into this next bull run, and you have to pick a horse, that you would pick a horse that actually could run, because the outcome and the roadmap and the success of an immutable contract on the blockchain that enables people to create abundance has been created and supporting the people of the TNM. And so we're going to be sharing with people. We got all kinds of detailed stuff. We're going to be answering questions. David Lee's going to give you a hug. And if you show up and you buy a ticket and you come up to the table and you talk to David Lee and you use the code word Rigby, we're going to give you 1 million Texan tokens. That's it. That's what we're doing. I believe fundamentally that Texas will be independent again. Why? Because of the will of me or Brandon or David Lee? No. Because I believe that this is the course of human events. And the question is, will we be ready? It's just like the pulse chain, folks. Right now, everybody's like, oh, getting down on Richard Hart and all these kind of things. If no one will stand for immutability, if no one will stand for DeFi, which has no middlemen, no counterparty risk, trustless yield, if no one will stand for that, then when time comes for the CBDCs and the digital IDs and the social credit scores, you will have nowhere to transact. I think one of the greatest legacies of Richard Hart is going to be the Pulse Chain. Why? Because it's the rails to ride on. It's the infrastructure of freedom and sovereignty. And it so aligns with our values in the Texan token. And that's why we've committed fully to it. Because right now you might say, well, I'm doing Avalanche or Arbitrum or Ethereum or all these other chains, or I like Polkadot. But the bug eaters, as Somi would say, are already in XRP, right? They're already doing the CBDCs. The digital dollar is coming to a government wallet near you. And what's interesting is you're going to have a choice. And that choice is going to be, where am I going to have the freedom and the privacy to transact that is not centralized and controlled? It is obvious that Bitcoin is going to be sacrificed on the altar of centralized authoritarians. They're already amassing it and controlling it. Ethereum's already done deals with the devil, in my opinion. But what is going to be the chain? What is going to be the infrastructure? What is going to be the community of people who go, you know what, all along, we were saving a seat for you. We were saving a place for you because we knew that this overreach and this power grab that is the global non-elected groups like the WHO and the World Economic Forum, these folks are going to continue to come and they're going to continue to control. And the beauty, the whole point of the blockchain, the whole reason that it was even invented is so that we would get rid of middlemen. But right now, the middlemen are on the rise, and they, in some cases, are a bit scared. So, the coupling of the pulse chain with things like Texan, with 500,000 people that are not in crypto, and a political topic that's going to be really, really big deal. We believe, and one of the big pushes at the TEXITCON Conference this weekend is going to be about the primary ballots. On the primary ballot of Texas, there is a referendum, and that referendum will be the first time it's on the primary ballot. And we're getting close to having all of the signatures to be able to force a question as a referendum on the primary ballot. This isn't the general, this is the primary. Do you believe that Texas should reassert itself as an independent nation? Yes or no? It's going to be interesting, right? So this is a big part of what we're doing. And so we come alongside the TNM. And why are we doing it? Because it's the right thing to do. Because we need to provide alternatives to people. Just like Richard Hart is doing with the pulse chain. Right now, it just seems like, oh, all these things are equal and I just have to choose. Nope. In the future, there will be centralized stuff that's controlled, and there will be one thing standing alone that is immutable, that is properly decentralized. That's the pulse chain. And right now, it seems like, oh, all things are lost. Nope, they're not. Just hang on. Thanks for joining the Pulse today. Let's get back into the chat, and then we will head out to Waco to shake your hand, to hug David Lee, to high five with people, and get prepared for tomorrow, which is the beginning of TEXITCON. So let's say hello to you. Who is in the chat? David, he's even putting maps to the location. Fantastic, dude. X-Force One, what's going on? Moon Mud, good stuff. Clintrons, good morning. Heartbeat crew, thanks for being here. Got people from across the pond and from down under. Checks my pulse. What's up, y'all? ID. Yes. Let's see. Local militia. You know what's funny is there's a group of people. One of the things I admire about the Texas nationalist movement and the leadership of the folks over there is that this is a peaceful approach, right? I think a lot of people, think of independence movements as, some sort of Second Amendment thing. No, this is not about that. This is something that there's a process that you go through. And so if anything, we want to do this in a peaceful way and through the political apparatus. And that's why I admire about this, because I wouldn't be a part of, something that was driven by arms. Hola. If y'all get independence, I'm definitely moving to Texas. Get me a ranch, dude. Yeah, you better get one now because the prices will end up going up. You watch what'll happen. And I think that, the process is actually a very long one. Look at Brexit, right? Look at Brexit leaving, the UK leaving the European Union. That took a long time. The first step in this is to have the primary ballot and people say, yes, this is what we want. That gives you political momentum. Polls help and all that kind of stuff, but money really does too. And so I really, truly believe that this next bull run and Texan token is going to play a very unique role in how we go about accomplishing this independence of Texas. That's why I think that you start now. This is a long-term thing. And that's the cool thing about the people in crypto in our community. They understand the long-term. That's why staking is built the way it is in the token, but that's what's required. And to think that we can couple these two things at the same time, where people are standing up and speaking up with additional resourcing that could be asymmetric. Tin Top, what's up? To bless and to protect. That's what it's meant for, right? It's not doing it, is it? It's not doing it. Hey, fam, blessed to be here. I truly believe it. What a time such as this. We were made for this time. And it's so true. I think about if you're Gen X like I am or below, I mean, man, I don't trust authority. I mean, there's a reason, and that's part of the whole timing of this generationally. QC Organics, beautiful Texas. Hexadelic, morning from Australia. It's pushback time, folks. People power. Amen. How great. I just want to stop and say thank you to all of you folks that don't live in Texas who are supportive. And because self-determination, I mean, if you think about it, Texas just became the 8th largest economy in the world. Think about that. Number 8 in the world. What do you think happens when Texas is independent? What do you think? There's leadership there. And if you think about it, I think when you preserve that, the core essence of the founding of America and the founding of Texas, and you embody that, you get back to the basics. It's like rebooting the system. It needs a reboot. I'm here to be salt and light to the earth. I'm not here to sit idly by. I'm born to make a true difference in people's lives. This I know this to be true. Crypto Ethos, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's it. That's what we're about. And you know what is exciting is I've always wanted to have something to sink my teeth into. How about you? Purpose, folks. And it's not just, here's the thing, it's not just purpose about, well, we did this political thing. No, what's the point of it? What comes out of it? A blessing and a protecting and reorienting government to serve rather than to lord. That's what's upside down. They think they're sovereign and you get your rights from the state. And all you have to do is talk to someone who's opposed to Texas independence, and they will make it very clear you can't do that. The Supreme Court fixed that in the Davis case. You're like, no, all political power resides in the people. The Supreme Court is not above the people. The Supreme Court is a creation of the people. And frankly, that case doesn't hold water. We've always retained that ability. Why? Because these rights are self-evident. We create, we are the sovereigns, not the state. You don't get your rights from the state. And that's a big thing that people need to understand. It's a fundamental thing. And when you realize it, you're like, well, yeah, I guess we did create this thing. And it is there to serve us, but it's enslaved us. That doesn't seem right. Well, people throughout history have said that to tyrants, King George being one of them. Hex Monkey's here. What's up, Hex Monkey? Have fun at the meeting and the conference, Matt, and everything else going on. I'll be with you in spirit, watching remotely. Fantastic. And here's a guy who's going to be there in person. I'm ready to have a great time with the other crypto wackos in the Waco community. See you soon, Texan family. Danny the Singer, thanks for being there. Hopefully you're driving up, listening to Crypto Heartbeat. A shout out to you. Looking forward to seeing you here in a couple hours. Tigre, that's awesome. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if little crooning happened? It could happen. It could be. Great work, Matt. Thanks so much. Daniel Miller, ladies and gentlemen, in the chat, get here before you need a visa to get in. Man, isn't that great? Daniel Miller, thank you for all that you have done, leading the people since 1996, at a time when the polls were at single digits. Daniel Miller not only wrote the book on Texit, but has led it in a way that I believe is the right way. And it has been a slog, man. He has worked so hard since 96 and then 2005 with the TNM. And now here he is on the eve of TEXITCON, and people from around the world coming into this conference to talk about independence. It's got to be, it's got to be a hard road. But when you see the polls increase to 66%, and you see people coming out of the woodwork, and you see folks like the Texan token folks and people in our community embracing the TNM, it's got to be an encouragement to you. We will come together. And the key in all of this is that primary ballot, getting those signatures and asking that question. And that's coming. And I'm super excited about what this does, this conference, what it ignites in people for the future. So Daniel, thanks so much. Looking forward to seeing you, and always the good humor of Daniel Miller. If you haven't picked up the book Texit, go to tnm.me. So if you want to learn about this, Daniel Miller wrote the book on it, and you need to check it out. You want to understand what we've come alongside of. I'm probably the only Californian that has read Texit. Dude, you probably are. Actually, there's probably a couple people from Northern California or from maybe there's some Orange County folks, maybe. But yes, you are likely one of the proud few. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. If you are on your way to Waco, see you in a couple hours and take care of yourself and do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody. We will catch you soon. We'll be doing some live streaming from the conference.